online reading series is hosted in Hamilton, Ontario, and our events are part of the cultural life of a city built on the traditional territories of the Mississauga and the Haudenosaunee nations, and within the lands protected by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Agreement. In this particular moment, I would like to acknowledge the struggle of the Haudenosaunee people to assert their treaty rights in the midst of settler and police encroachment, and send solidarity to land defenders who have now been at 1492 Landback Lane for 477 days and nights. This evening, we have 4 readers, beginning with Khashayar Mohammadi and Jaclyn Desforges, followed by a short intermission with a live musical performance by Faiswan Nguyen, and then 2 more readings from Simon Richards and Adam Pottle. Time permitting, we'll end off the night with a Q&A, so if you have any questions, please save them for our discussion. If you have a technical problem, please let us know in the chat, and someone from our committee will assist you. Gary will look after any meeting-wide modifications that might be required, and please note that during the readings, audience microphones will be muted. Our first reader tonight is Khashayar Mohammadi. Khashayar Mohammadi is a queer, Iranian-born, Toronto-based poet, writer, and translator. They are the winner of the Vallum Poetry Prize 2021 and author of 4 poetry chapbooks. Their debut poetry collection, Me, You, Then Snow, is out with Gordon Hill Press. Please welcome to LitLive, Khashayar Mohammadi.
Hello, hello. Hello, everyone. I have, I think this part was before all the audience members came in, but I have brought along an industrial amount of orange juice to accompany me on this night. Also, how do I pin myself? Okay, let me pin myself. All right, let's talk less and read more. Okay, just one more. God gone astray in the flesh. And so I'm going to read 4 poems from my book from Gordon Hill Press and just finish with a couple small ones. This first one's called God Gone Astray in the Flesh. After Frantz Fanon and Douglas R. Hofstadter. My tongue twisting into my mother tongue, entwined a new set of vowels for this chilly night of consonants, shrill with friction like piss and toilet water. Past is lowly, a place of pasture. Past is a dialect I no longer speak fluently. And my present is hemorrhaging cells. My body, my tan, my epidermal self aching. I want to be on my knees, hearing shut up and suck it, and I'll do both. Without moaning, the tongue can explore much, much, the tip disappearing. Male for man, male for tan. Male to be male, the desire to arrive at the khud, become khoda, God in the flesh, self-aware. Self stands for self-enlightened life force. Above each self, an endless ladder of selves. Enter the tortoise with Achilles asymptotically approaching. Achilles, knock knock. Tortoise, kia. Achilles, man. Tortoise, man who? Achilles, the who man, one pillar of the threefold path, Zarathustra's Nietzsche, traveling west come cover of dusk. And taking my eyes off the LED corona of texted nudes, my witching hour sunspots supernova behind eyelids. The psychedelia of self-theft, of self-loss, nebulous in its fragments, fragmented in its piercing light, oozing from eye sockets onto wrinkled foreheads, mint in mortar, I stare into mirrors that refuse to reflect, till medication can herd thoughts into pasture. Leash all that intrudes, till I am my own mirror, Khoda, self-reflective, till I know clearly that I exist. Also, I realized I forgot to do something, which is that I am a West Asian male. I have a beard and glasses. I am wearing headphones and a orange cap. I have a microphone in front of me, and a background is um, Persian tile works. Sorry, I forgot about that. The tile work behind me is mainly blue and yellow, and I am wearing a mainly blue and green shirt. Poem number 2 is called Genealogy of Rumi. The genealogy is written with a DJIN, like Jin. For Christina Bailey, may she rest in peace. It starts with a quote that goes, "He knew that he was contending against a div, and he put forth all his strength, but the div was mightier than he, and overcame him, and crushed him under his hands." From Ferdowsi's Shahnameh, as translated by Helen Zimmern. Rumi says to leave behind all earthly possessions, to become divaneh, to act like a div. Div from da'eva through Avestan, but da'eva makes devil through the Indo-European connection. Morality at the hands of etymology. Divaneh, now crazy from Swedish krasa, to crush, shatter. Jagged edges of a consciousness, once prevalent, now too sharp to fit into any rounded conversation. But there's a second etymology that says div through deva. Deva makes divine. Rumi says divanisho. Is it become mad or become divine? Touched, transcendent, gifted. Div, now chiefly demon, from Greek daemon, originally benevolent, semi-holy, disfemized by history. Crazy, gone back to Persian, becomes Majnun, as in possessed by a jinn, like genius, the Roman appropriation of daemon. For example, Socrates had a daemon, Da Vinci had a genius. Jinns promised real by the Quran have become B-movie tropes now. For example, young girl moves to rural town. Her dorm room is possessed by a jinn. A jinn she can now carry, a venereal disease. She can become jende, a prostitute, a jinn giver. But Majnun is tragic obsession, love. Romeo at the end of his wits, driven to poetry by love. Roaming the desert so long, parents have given up hope. Majnun, possessed, fragmented, but whole in eternal exile, prone to ventriloquy, often called schizophrenia. Wearing a thick layer of dusk as eyeshadow and sailing the choppy waters of taxi window blinds, staring out the window and into the mind. The sheer effort of existence scratched onto the spine, roaming the concrete deserts of indifference, days dictated by pharmaceuticals. Now, ask me again about etymology. Div, da'eva, devil, or div, deva, divine. I have a couple of short poems that are not in the book. This is called Artiste sans oeuvre, and it goes, when he says he doesn't like poetry, when he says he doesn't like big words, he means he doesn't like poverty. This next one is called Tarkovsky's Mirror, and of course it's based on Tarkovsky's Mirror. Dedicated to Claudia Edwards. Come throes of a cock, death throes of a bird trapped in a fist, and the skin that sheathes our soul opaque. A dried leaf in the pages of history, blighted, once green. And the last poem I will read from my book is called Ode to Mr. Churchyard, and it's after Soren Kierkegaard. Think dusk, think lake, think indigo. Think thistles rattling so loud the wind ran away in stitches. Electricity galloping on transmission towers, hilltops glance at urban life. Stand in silence and ache for thawed recollections of childhood. Bouquet of floating traffic lights, secondhand nostalgia, VHS induced. With the last ray of sunset, your shadow climbs back into its vessel. Cool breeze to color in that silence. An echo of an echo of an echo of an echo. And I'm going to read two that are not in the book and are from future projects. Actually, I feel like I'm going a bit over time. Can I read the... there are two short poems. Can I read those or should I stop? Because I feel like I went a bit
No,
over
you're
time.
good. You're good because we started at 7:30, so
Okay,
you're
okay.
good. Yeah.
So, I actually don't know. Okay, I'm just gonna say this is from a book that is coming, hopefully, not hopefully. Okay, I just don't know how much I'm allowed to say about it, but the book is coming, and this poem is called "The Naive Sufi." Word came, who are you? An entangled presence, a mirror grown into a body. Word came, it has been said before. Words scramble on the page are mere scribbles. Word came, illegible. An interruption, a cough, a child's question. Word came, theater only exists without an audience. And I'll end with this, which is called A Thomsonian Ghazal for Zarathustra. And it starts with a quote from Mehdi Akhavon-Sales, which goes, "Who do I know other than my father that I speak of ancestry? The dawn suckling on my psyche, your eyes have the hunter's glow. Me and you, we share a silence. So I dwell in the subscript to keep up. Greek gods on every corner, sex toys and Plato's spawn. Most await to hear the absolute, but I just want the finite to speak. I wait for a knot to untangle as I run my hands through my father's hair. Prophets walk this earth, and if not spoken to God, I bow simply to elaborate beguiling. A qarn, a century or similitude, a crux to reflect a single story foretold and retold. Kill the fire temple. Don't you know a new prophet has arisen? Send Zarathustra traveling west. May he meets Nietzsche. Cue theater rain. Shake the metal sheet for thunder. A simulacrum. The oceans blowing over. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Kes. We look forward to this new mysterious book that may or may not be coming. Although Shane did say in the chat that he decrees you can tell anyone you like. Our next reader tonight is Jaclyn Desforges. Jaclyn Desforges is the author of a poetry collection, Danger Flower, from Palimpsest Press and Ann Struther Books in 2021, and a picture book, Why Are You So Quiet, from Annick Press in 2022. Jaclyn is a Pushcart nominated writer and the winner of the 2018 RBC Pen Canada New Voices Award, 2 2019 Short Works Prize, and a 2020 Hamilton Emerging Artist Award for writing. Her writing has been featured in literary magazines across Canada. She is an MFA candidate at the University of British Columbia's School of Creative Writing and lives in Hamilton with her partner and daughter. Please welcome Jaclyn Desforges.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for being here. Can you hear me okay? Okay, cool. I'm excited to read to you. This is a really lovely event. It's nice to see all your faces, or a lot of them. So the first poem I'm going to read to you is called At 5, I Understood Everything. I'm going to put up my timer. Hang on. There we go. Okay. There are pussy willows growing outside of certain women's houses. There are bodies inside of bodies, inside of bodies, inside of houses. There are seeds inside of summer, inside of winter, inside of houses. There's a lawn inside me, uncertainty. Nobody can see behind my eyelids but me. Father figure. One day you'll tell my mother, at least my kids are consistent. Yours goes good, 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 bad. But I'm not bad yet. Flat on my back in some lake, someone brought a hot plate. I make friends with a seagull. My Tamagotchi gets sand inside, never turns on again. Zebra mussels cut me and I wade to shore, dripping like murder. And you glance at me like you're afraid. Well, maybe you should be. I think there's a place where two people can speak to each other from a distance, some campground bonfire where foreheads glow gold. When you can't see clearly, when you're 8 or 40 with a mortgage, a life, I know it can all seem murky, impossible. I know a child can rise blood-striped from a body of water, and you can look past her to the horizon, see nothing at all. Pony closet. All the guests are here and also fruitcake, which arrived alone in a minivan. The potpourri has been refreshed. Ice cream is melting on the front steps. Everyone's feet are sticky. Everyone's fingernails are picking at apple skins. The games we play help prepare us for the future. When I slip into the closet to play with plastic horses, nobody notices. I like the smell of dust on carpet. Today is my day, my pony closet quiet day. I'm so lucky. God's looking at me straight today. Yesterday was my brother's day and the sky filled up with lightning. At least the lawn has that green smell now, so the worms are happy here. Nesting dolls. Sometimes I feel imbued with a coral color, an earth pink, like it's coming out my elbows. Sometimes I feel like my whole body's a remembering, and the part of me that's riding a scooter, scooting to school, is hanging out with Emma Williamson's remembering. And inside every one of those rememberings, there's a hard kernel. So if we all dissolved at the same time, if we got together for a middle school reunion and lined up for a beer and then melted, what remained would be a series of pebbles. Somebody who saw it later would know nothing about us. When I think about what comes after, what comes later in the sequence, I get nervous. I start to think maybe I really am here for nothing. I start to think about her trampoline, Emma's, and pressing my back against the elastic, about the orange allness even when my eyes were squeezed shut. Forest fire. Slut makes me think of the Grand Canyon. Slut makes me think of a door. Slut makes me think of those clouds, stop motion, when I cut through the forest to school. When ink goes inside you, does it ever come out? Boys behind oak trees yell slut. When you open the door, you're in a bathtub, so you take off all your clothes. I liked it better when I thought the trees were talking. Say slut 3 times and I appear. Say slut 4 times and I get a master's degree. Slut makes me think of the forest floor. Birth. Perfection is bleeding an average amount overnight. Perfection rolls my eyes backward until the horizon flips. I like the paper dresses and how the hallways smell clean. If I were a sturgeon, I'd live forever, wriggle in the mud and lay eggs and wash my face with cold water. I don't move, but there are wishes inside me, and a catheter, and what drips out is ordinary blood. My dreams aren't dreams that come from soft places. If I sleep, I'm afraid I'll forget her. Episodic depression. There is a cul-de-sac. There is a tangle of fishing line in an oak tree. The cicadas leave their skins behind. They won't stop crying. The room inside of me is empty. I'm not here anymore. There's been a murder. Nature is as unknowable as a cumulus cloud. That ice cream truck's been circling the block for days. When I get back, I'll give myself a scolding and a rat to care for with a long, soft tail. Their father is here, but this isn't his house. Everything's grid-like. He can't move diagonally. My daughter's apron is covered in flour. All she does is cry and knead. Ventilation. When you make fire, you have to keep making fire, or everything will get damp. One day, your mother won't save you. One day, you'll be alone with all your babies and no checks in the mail. You'll cook chicken legs like your mother did. You'll be afraid like your mother was. One day, there'll be no one in your kitchen but you. Nothing left but a ceiling fan. Nothing left but damp feet under a ceiling fan. Your children will come inside and you'll feed them. You'll only hurt them in ways you can't possibly control. You'll hyperventilate, but only when the sun's up. At night, the sky's so black, you feel swallowed and happy, especially with your seatbelt on tight, especially with the car drifting. An in-breath is every mother's favorite sound, but your mother's not here, so the moon follows you home. Novel therapies. When you get mastitis, they tell you to lie down. So I carve 2 openings in the earth and lean forward. I set my chin in the mud. Insects come with their tongues. It's better than nursing. Your nipples actually taste sweet, some childless lover said once. She made me wash her dishes. What's that sensation? They probably banned it in France, like restless leg syndrome. That fundamental incongruence between outer action and inner impulse, between ice the cupcakes and lie down dead, between outside and inside, when outside is buttercream and inside, well, the inside is multiplying. Hang on, sorry, I have to look at my table of contents. Oh, there we are. Nerve signals. I hope someone has noticed my status update. We press our foreheads together under the covers. I say, I hope you're not trying too hard, though I kind of like it when he tries too hard. The cucumbers have lost their structural integrity. My husband's girlfriend says he's a typical Aries. All the people I've ghosted are haunting me. You'll know I love you when I text you bedhead selfies. 2 more poems. This one's called Trauma Panorama. 1. Your maiden aunt kept every scrap of paper, every scrap. Sometimes she went to the movies. When you're a maiden, your day unfolds like a horoscope. You're a Capricorn, but don't let it distract you. You keep being born at the center of things. Did your parents ever lock you in a closet? Is a part of you still locked inside a closet? We don't want you to come out. Some doors shouldn't be opened. Meet another person, that person is you. Meet a goldfinch, it's all projection. 3. Pan is a ghost. He's in the closet with you. He stomps his hooves at the scent of you. Pan's eyes are amber marbles in your mouth. He places a ticket stub on the surface of your tongue. You bite down and the door flies open. This last poem is called The End. My poems are eggshells made of the eggshells of other eggshells, and birdhouses made from bones. I don't like weighing myself anymore, not after last time. My eyelashes keep falling in my soup. A sturgeon appears in silhouette on the moon. This is the life I want to live. I keep the window open. I'm not scared of bees. I think a baby might fix me. I guess what I'm wondering is how we keep breathing if there have always been bodies in the streets. Today, maybe I'll just be direct. It won't be a fairy tale. I won't make it to the end of whatever this is. Thank you, everybody.
Wonderful, Jaclyn. Thank you so much. We're going to take a brief musical intermission now. Our next performer is Faizwan Nguyen. Faizwan is a disabled Fey orchestral music composer, writer, poet, and illustrator designer. Their recent projects have involved the solo development of aesthetic interactive fiction games exploring the nuances not exclusive to the following: power, trauma, madness, non-binariness, divinity, and monstrosity. Their 2021-22 game project is Ochitsubaki, the demo on Steam now, and other current releases on itch include Lychee Seed, a poetry novella / audio drama, Heaven's Yoke, a poem / illustration web game, and Moth Lily and Emperor, the fairies sing each to each's poetry novella and audio drama. Liar Lioness 2 is currently releasing as a visual novel on itch. Please welcome to LitLive, Faizwan.
Hi, everyone. I'm actually going to, I decided I was going to play music and then read separately, but then I decided I might as well just play through one of my games. It's like a poem game, so it does suit the theme. Let me just share my screen. Give me 1 second. Can everyone see this? Good to go? How's the volume? Thank you. I just wanted to make sure that everyone stays safe. So trigger warnings for CSA, sexual violence, parental abuse, suicide, and self-harm. I don't remember if all of those apply to this section, but for sure, sexual violence and parental abuse are in this section. Childhood sexual abuse. Be careful, everyone. If you need to leave the room, stay safe. 1. I know there is still sacred left in this world which I have made bereft of any humanity. And within me there are no regrets. I would do anything for my beloved, who I would rather die than see dead. Nothing is inviolate, but I know there is still sacred left. In this world where humanity has gone bereft, I know there is still sacred left in the left-hand curse of my one beloved, who regrets me and the age that bred me, whose burns and scars never had mended, and whose wounds everyone that's met me could see, or maybe didn't. God knows what humans will ignore if there is no benefit in it. In heaven there is only the mark of the Maker who I abhor, whose seal I made and wore, and where an ink that will not splatter and lines that will not tear. The mark of the Maker, oh heaven forsake her. I wear spiraling on my chest, a lattice work of heaven's net tangled across my breast. And the money I've made despite my lack of breasts, at my own behest. An ass is an asset as well, that I know best. But I wonder now what the world will make of itself, now that the fey wilds of heaven are unraveling in mayhem. I know there is still sacred left in him, sacrosanct, who I hurt without asking him. Not even a word was spoken as if he wanted to live, because he didn't, and I didn't, and don't care if he didn't and doesn't want to. He can hate me for the rest of eternity. He can hate me, because as much as I bore the brunt of rape, coercion, a cocktail of irreparable, inviolate desolation and unrepair, I too, even then, found sacred there. You can find holy in anything, though it took not just any ring, but sacrosanct, to make me believe, make me see that it was true what they said about me. They said I'd never love, the heartless gods of emperor and dove. They said I'd never love, and I knew. When I found it to be true was when I looked at you, sacrosanct, and thought of possession. That your opal proved I had you. Have I got it in me another lie? Let's try. Do I lie when I say I love you, sacrosanct, when it is an emotion with such fucking ferocity it steals the breath from me? And of course, how can I deny the sheer intensity, the overwhelming breath of me. A mere mortal, the ultimate envy of every falcon and falconer, of everyone since my birth, to tell me I'd amount to nothing. That sex was all I was worth. And I not only bettered a curse, but kept him. I love that ring, tear-dew opal and shining gold. Who cares? I don't know if I'll ever grow old. That'll resolve in days untold. Because I know you won't, so I'll follow, sacrosanct, I'll follow. I love you, you know. What does that mean? That means heaven forgotten, heaven unseen. I was one of those things, a jewel of such envy of the gods. They took it all away from me before I could speak. And now I claim what is mine to keep. Do I love you, Sukuna? The god I named and whose name was remembered for eons thereafter. The god who was named because I saw his names in the variegated pages of a book of secrets. Who learned it from me? Who learned this from me, Sukuna? I will do anything to survive, and I will survive anything. But if you ever told me that you did not want me alive, that you regretted me so, you wished me to die, I would die. Is this love, unable to bear being alive in the absence of another? Is this love, possession of desire possessing me to devour all of humanity by unlocking the seventh gate and not telling you before, not letting you know what I was doing, not letting you know until too late? Am I allowed, heaven, by heaven's whim, to tell you I love you? Sukuna, my darling, my dear, dear as ember, wicked December, the diurnal days come to pass, the cover of night come at last. Am I allowed, heaven, to say I love him when it's possible? I only love the obedient Sukuna I have fashioned. What do I love about you, Sukuna? The passion of our nights together, your devotion to me, no matter the weather of my mind. The way I'd adore you, then freeze, going cold, knowing how it goes, how it all always goes. And then you refusing to play your part in it, to fib and lie and see from me only the most decadent parts, leaving the rest to drain without a single start. But you didn't. You never did. You didn't even seem to realize it this. When I asked you, don't you hate it? No. I know you hate it, but I won't let you kiss me after I fucked you. Don't you despise it, how I don't give you your due? No, I don't especially like to be touched after I've been fucked, though I suppose it's only been by you. So I suppose you not insisting on the unwanted contact is giving me my due. But you ask for it every time. Do I? Yes, you tilt your chin up and smile at me. Oh, that's because I want you to smile back at me. Sukuna smiles. My heart goes bitterly cold with specious envy that he can smile so easily without any guile. How? He a curse, God, a curse of the worst design. How can he? How can he be so utterly mine? Sukuna, in our time alive, 1,000 years past mine, you never got angry with me. No matter how often I tried to incite your rage just to test it, the bars of my birdcage, but it always seemed after a point that you were the bird, and you never minded being kept and called and frolicked and slept in the same bed as me whenever I wanted it and whatever you needed. You were tamed. I named you. I had to take responsibility for the way I had tamed you. Now, is that love? Caring for someone under your control, the way the world ends when you realize that you were supposed to be cared for by your father and your ghostly mother and your father. How hard do you realize an absence of something that should have been there until you begin to bear the cruelty and then pray for days of absence once again? I couldn't live there anymore after that began. I couldn't bear it. When my landlords fucked me, I thought of the dark and I thought of the trees. I thought of the lanterns on the river at night and all the stories. I thought of how much money I'd save getting my ass fucked raw, and I thought of the waves in the draconic river. I thought of the ways that a quiver of arrows would strike the eye of a lychee, so I didn't have to think of it, didn't have to see the way my own body shook after I was taken, and regret would overtook me to think that I could survive this, survive me. It It wasn't always bad. It often was, but not always. It was easier after meeting Utana, stripper girl, not a clustered girl back then, but now a clustered girl with a great ass. And made me think about why I'd grown out my hair so long, made me think about how I wasn't a body, I was a mind. Utana led me to a building whose lord wasn't so bad to fuck, only ever asked for blowjobs since he didn't want to push his wife's luck. Until he fell in love with a mistress and asked for peep shows instead, since he said, damn, she'd have old creme I did with blisters if she ever caught me fucking with a mister. That led me to camming, which was a lot better than what the hell ever I'd been doing before. Utana helped me a lot. That is something I've never forgotten. And no matter what rot has settled into my bone, I have never forgotten the 9 tales of heaven. The way heaven alone always called me home, no matter how far I was taken, no matter how far I would go. Do I love you, Sukuna, because I love sacred, or because nothing is sacrosanct to me? I named myself Violet after you, you know. No one calls me it. When you asked my name as you debated whether to eat me as I stood on the steps of your home, after in my time as I neared the steps of your last remaining shrine, I slipped on a river stone that triggered a curse, a trick, a wick that went out and made me still, and 6, the temporal curse flung me 1,000 years past to do the work of the future. Heaven's work, my ass. Your shrine was as I imagined it, resplendent ivory and ultramarine, unforeseen in the modern day, so absolutely a place I never had been. Glittering opalescent pillars, gates leading the way home, deep oceanic tiles in the rooftop leading the way to a home I never had known, but that I so desperately wanted to call home. I did for a time, you wanted to be mine. I am losing my thought. I had never foresought the future or envisioned living in the past, but seeing you on those steps, if you could call it love, what I feel for you, which I want to, that is to say, feel and call it love. I fell in love then at the sheer sight of you, immense. Your falcon-colored skin, the wide breadth of your wings, your forearms folded, banded with muscle and devotion and warmth and everything therein, the patterning of your skin, the curse marks intricately shimmering, woven in silver and glittering, a trick of the light. Despite myself, I found that I fell. I knew when I saw you then there was for certain still sacred left. My feelings haven't changed. Even in this world bereft of whatever guilt humanity gave it, it wasn't worth it to save it, because living wouldn't be worth it without you. You are sacred to me. We are sacred to me, us two. That's why I did it. I can only pray that you'll someday forgive it. Should I give back the host privileges to Ben or Gary?
Gary would be great.
Okay.
Amazing.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you
I
so
have to
much,
read the messages
Rizwan.
now.
Yeah,
Okay, I'll mute myself.
wonderful. Thank you so much. We are going to continue tonight with Simon Richards reading for Paul Listen. But before that, I'd just like to welcome everyone back to the readings and note that we are constantly tinkering with our process. So if there's anything we can do tonight to make it easier for our audience, please let us know in the chat window on the right side of your screen or through our Facebook group, the LitLive Reading Series. Like I said, next up we have Simon Richards, who will be reading for Paul Listen. Welcome to Paul, who I can see out there as well. Good to at least see your name, Paul. Simon Richards is a writer, illustrator, director, and actor with 25 plus years in commercial film and TV credits. With 25 plus commercial film and TV credits. Perhaps the most unexceptional, that of playing Mickey Rooney's son in A Home for Christmas, 1990. The most notable might be the Genie-nominated film House, written and directed by Laurie Lind, as an adaptation of Daniel McIver's one-man play. The film premiered at the 1995 Toronto International Film Festival. Simon has also performed in and co-directed independent films, perhaps the most notorious being Death and the Hammer by Denise Lisson. Simon has also performed numerous roles on stage, including at the McManus Studio of the Grand Theatre, London, Ontario, and Nightwood Theatre at Theatre Passe Murale, Toronto, Ontario. For decades, Simon has interpreted and performed the writing of poet with disability Paul Listen. Paul has long realized that any performance could better engage an audience when presented by voices and personalities other than his own. Please welcome Simon Richards reading for Paul Listen.
Can you hear me?
We can, yes, thank you. Oh, I think you may be muted again, Simon, sorry.
Now?
There we go, yeah.
Okay,
perfect.
great. Thank you very much. Hello again. So I'm going to be reading from The Perfect Archive by Paul Listen. I've got several poems from the body, a couple of marginalia, and some inevitabilities. So actually one marginalia. Necromantic. My bones, one by one, I replace with others, long buried in secret places, crypts, tombs, so that one by one, I reconstruct my bones with others, of dead people more interesting than me. Aspired to. The gated entry. The uniformed man, he smiles and nods. A laneway bordered by camellias and tremonia, rhododendron and viburnum to flower in winter. Triumphal facade, columns and granite, endless stairway. Ascend to an iron-clad door, studded with nails, coats of arms, and flags that summon the wind. Those who work here need not climb, need not essay. A smaller door for coming and going can be found below, and in back. It is there for them. It is not there for me. A third door exists midway between heaven and earth. It is not known to the princes who enter above, nor to the worker bees in their drones. As spider gathers eggs, my day begins. Wind the clock, watch and wait. Soldat. He walks the way tombstones walk, enters the room slow as mud, and the message is there immediately. Run. Get out. It is a message written in ice that flows with purpose through your body to that reptile part of your brain that is always anticipating. Get out. Run. The diminishment of distance, an approach so profound. Is he closer? Is he in fact any closer? Sometimes preventative measures prove in vain. Recourse must then be found in uncertain places. The hair of a bear might be burned. Carve a figure from soap, pierce it with nails. With water cupped in your left hand and a black-handled knife in your right, find recourse. Find it in uncertain places. Second inevitability. While radios played. We manufactured wires from the useless parts of our bodies. Redundant veins, kidney stones, tonsils, appendix. Our hair and nails stopped growing as we pushed out wire from a bit of heart, a bit of tongue, some cartilage, spine, and lung. We pushed the finest wire out from our useless bodies, thinner than 30 gauge, 0.999 fine silver round wire, 0.010. And it stretched out. Searching for other wires, stretched out and out and out for miles and miles. Friend, the wire would ask. Friend? Then wire might entwine with wire and be known and be understood. Eighth inevitability. Scrape. Man gave me a shave with 3 hot towels, lather steaming mug, brush full of badger, razor sharp as a 7 mighty swipes. Creamed facial rub, unguents, tonics, oils, eyebrows at attention. Last towel, cold as. Man gave me a shave, dressed me in my clothes, powdered my nose, put me in a box. Thank you.
Out in a box. Thank you so much, Simon. Wonderful.
Thank you very much.
We have one more reader this evening.
Oh, Ben.
That's Adam. Yeah.
Actually, we have another extra special
Oh, of course, of
demonstration.
course.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm getting ahead of myself.
I can introduce it if you wish.
Yeah,
so this is
please do.
We do all sorts of wild things, and my screen just got shared against my will. But this is a film that involves a great many people, but it involves a reading of Paul's work as well, in which Simon is reading from poetry at the beginning, and it's based on the gassing of 250,000 people with disability in Nazi Germany, the Action T4 story. And Paul tells me that underlying it is the idea that we should not view the Holocaust in a narrow way in one time or one place. Okay, thank you very much.
and inert, possessing passive ability, authority, evidence, threatening memory. Records do not participate. They take no part, they take no side. Inert. Guilt is a byproduct. Guilt is not evidence. A document possesses passive authority. Memory obscures participation. Memory imitates inertia. Memory is collective. Redemption's ash spread from the oven.
Documents stamped, embossed, and inert, possessing passive ability, authority, evidence, threatening, memory, 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 memory. Records do not participate. They take no part. They take no side. Inert. Guilt is a byproduct. Guilt is not evidence. A document possesses passive authority. Memory obscures participation. Imitates inertia. Memories collective, redemption's ash spread from
Wow, amazing. Such powerful work. Thank you to both Simon Richards and Paul Lisson. We're going to move along to our final reader of the night, and that will be Adam Pottle. Adam Pottle is a deaf writer whose work focuses on disabled characters. His books include the award-winning novels Mantis Dreams and The Bus, the poetry collection Beautiful Mutants, and the memoir Voice. His most recent play, The Black Drum, is the world's first all-deaf musical and was performed to great acclaim in Toronto and France. He is the current writer-in-residence at Sheridan College and is whittling his new novel into something his agent hopefully approves of. He lives in Treaty 6 territory in Saskatoon, where he enjoys walking his dog and fuzzy overlord, Valkyrie. Please welcome to LitLive, Adam Pottle.
Thank you, Dan. And I have to apologize to everybody in advance before I do my reading, because as you can see, Valkyrie is right here beside me. Aren't you? Yeah. Okay. So she may pop up once or twice. Okay. Now, this evening I'm going to read a section from my brand new novel. It's called Apparitions. And it hasn't been published. It's something that I just completed earlier this year. And so I hope it's okay. So, here we go. And Apparitions is, it's about a young deaf man, and it was inspired by a number of true stories. And throughout history, there have been a number of young men who, for various reasons, were held captive by their families and were prevented from interacting with other people and from learning language. And the section that I'm about to read is from the protagonist's perspective. The sun shrunk away. The sky turned red. I hurried down the road. I didn't want the sun to leave me. I didn't want to be outside at night. I was tired. I had nothing to eat or drink. Each step I took, feet thudded on the ground, and the impact rattled up my legs into my throbbing arm. Horrible thoughts knocked around my skull. I wondered if my mother was close. I wondered if she wanted me back. I wondered if my father was still alive. I wondered if he was trying to find me. I tried to remember the path that I'd taken from my mother's. I tried to squeeze the memory of that night in my father's truck to the front of my brain. I yelled. I punched myself in the head. I hated my own ignorance. I didn't know the path. I didn't know where to find food or water. I knew nothing that could help me. My father had made me that way, kept me that way. The sky grew bruised, then black. Stars were like tooth holes the dogs had punched in my arms. A small thought arose, a tiny image floating between all the other larger ones crashing about. My mother's empty house, her ashtray gone cold. Like a rash, the thought grew and festered. My mother's face full of bullet holes, her bones in a dog's mouth, her body lost in the dirt. I quickened my pace, trying to leave the thought behind. I searched for a place to sleep. A raw, heavy smell clogged the air. Flies bumped against my face. A large lump rose out of the ground. I stopped hard. I could only see its outline in the darkness. Something meaty and furry and swollen with death. I slapped the flies away and ran around the lump into the tall grass. It tickled my knees. I kept wincing, like someone was about to hit me. I wasn't used to gentleness. I held my arm tight against my body, gripped the stick that was taped to it. The tape had been coming loose the whole day. I kept trying to stick it back together. On the far edge of the field, I saw a black shadow in the distance, blacker than the sky. Not a tree, not a hill. Its edges were too straight. I ran toward it. The shadow slowly grew bigger. I ran harder. My leg caught on something. I fell hard into something flat and metal. My broken arm caught beneath me. Something was stuck to my leg. I reached down and pulled part of a wire fence out of my leg. In the darkness, I could just see a long, bloody rip in my shin. I shook the darkness. I'd lost the shadow. I got up and limped toward where I thought it might be. Blood slipped down my leg. I stopped. I made a sound. My throat was dry. I forced my voice up like unwanted food. I squinted in every direction. The darkness had thickened. I stood in the center of perfect nothingness. I tried to feel walls, sense them. Walls were what I knew. They were built into my skin. I took a step one way, then another. I felt dizzy. I got to my knees and felt my way along the ground. My hand closed on splinters of wood, pieces of glass. I saw the black shadow again. I kept crawling. The front steps of a house emerged, gray and unreal in the dark. I stood and walked up the steps. The front door was broken, so were the windows. I pushed past the door. It snapped off and fell back onto the floor. The house was even darker inside. No lights, no people. I saw nothing. I knocked on the wall and called out. I stepped to the left and put my hands on the floor to feel for footsteps. My heartbeat echoed up at me. The house smelled like old blood. Cool air blew through the door and the windows. I felt my way over to the wall and stayed close to it. A floorboard snapped upward when I stepped on it. I inched my way leftward through each room. My hunger dug at me. My stomach was a fist grasping at air. In the first room, I stumbled on a hole in the floor. Splinters brushed my skin. In the next room, my knee bumped against something solid. My hands sloped down a cool porcelain wall. I tried the faucet. I kept moving. Tried the faucet in the kitchen. My foot stubbed against steps going upward. I followed them slowly. I kept my hand on the wall. The steps were narrow. Each one had a different height. The darkness was so thick, someone could have been standing in front of me and I wouldn't have known. I reached the top of the steps. I moved along the wall, into the room. Hard paper stuck out from the wall in curls. Whenever I walked into something, the air squeezed around me, closed in on me. I hit the wall and made a noise, pushed it up out of my scratchy throat. I waited. I held my broken arm against my chest. I touched my torn ear. My pain seemed diminished in the dark, less real. I breathed deeply. I felt my way over to the window. It was still whole. I kept going. My hand jammed against wood. Something moved. I made a fist, knocked on the wood. It shivered. I pushed it. A door swung away from the wall. I moved around it, back out into the hall. I touched my leg. My skin had rolled all the way up to the top of the rip and ended in a small bundle just below my knee. My finger came away slick. I licked it. My tongue loosened a little. I edged along the wall. Through my bare feet, I felt something scrape along the floor. I stopped. It was right in front of me. I blinked. My blinks made gray marks on the black air. I kicked my foot out. I extended my hand. I waited. I took even smaller breaths. I took a step, another step. The thing powdered along the floor. Whatever it was had waited for me to move too. I shouted. Whatever powdered on the floor didn't move. I moved along. I felt nothing. I entered another room. Wind blew through the broken window in the corner and loosened the air. Something soft greeted my feet. I picked it up. It was heavy, a rug or a blanket. As soon as I felt how heavy it was tired. I sat against the wall and pulled the soft object over my legs. Dust rose into my face. I coughed and rubbed my eyes. The thing powdered again. Small feet. I felt the floor through my ass. I searched my imagination for something that might match those small feet. I tried to give it shape. I pulled the soft object tight around me. I covered my legs and feet so that the thing couldn't bite me. I knocked on the floor. I shouted. I waited for the thing to move again. I fell asleep waiting. I awoke a short time later. At first, I couldn't tell if I'd woken. It was still dark. Years of living in a lit room had deepened the darkness. I'd had a dream I was punching something. It hit the wall. My hand crumbled. I stayed awake as long as I could, waiting for light. Light found me, pressing soft and pink on my eyelids. I opened my eyes. I lay on my side. The blanket twisted off me. The soft blue running light made the walls look furry. My neck hurt, my knuckle bled. It hurt to close my hand. Across the room was a square metal skeleton, all rusted ribs and thick limbs. A stained mattress slumped off the skeleton onto the floor beside it. The floor was old, dirty wood. My throat was dry as the paper crawling off the walls. I stirred and walked down the hall. The boards in the floor bent upwards in places. My arm hurt. My hand below the break felt heavy, like it had turned stone. I searched for whatever creature had pattered past me, then stepped carefully down the stairs. Every room was full of furry blue light. My feet were cool. I rushed where I placed them on the splintered floor. The whole house smelled like dirt, like it had been buried. Many of the walls had holes punched into them. A few had drawings of penises and silly faces in yellow and green paint. The cupboards held dust and empty bowls. I tried the faucets again. On the main floor, the front window had been shattered. The remaining glass had browned. I sat on a chair along the wall. I hadn't sat in a chair in years. I felt uneasy. I stood again. One of the windows in the front room was intact. I walked over to it, saw myself approaching the glass. I hadn't seen myself in years. I was expecting a child, not the tall, thin, dirty ghoul I saw. I recoiled. Blood ran down the side of my face onto my neck. My hair hung off my head in snarled, red-brown clumps. Whiskers sprouted above my lip. My face was narrow, my skin was grubby, my teeth were gray and jagged. My father's eyes stared back at me. I made a noise, a small ant of a sound that skittered up my throat. I touched my face, pulled at my whiskers, threw my hair back and forth. I grew dizzy and turned away from my reflection and sank to the floor. I was alone. No one knew where I was. No one knew who I was. I didn't know who I was. Looking in the mirror solved nothing. I didn't know where I was supposed to be or what I was supposed to do. The prairie outside the window was green and gold and open, but I couldn't go. I had nothing. I was nothing. In a vague way, I knew all of this. The thoughts sat in me. That's what happens with thoughts you can't say. They sit. They sink into you. I felt sleepy again. I lay flat on the floor. I was hungry and thirsty, but had no energy. Dirt clung to my hair and skin. I touched the rip in my ear. I wanted to vomit, but had nothing in my stomach. The house was empty, yet every room had weight, a crouching fury waiting to lash out. The faces and penises and broken walls and splintered floors poked at me, tried to dig into me. Something flashed, quick and white. I thought it was a gun. The house crumbled. Outside there was another flash. White filled the air. The house shook again. I cringed and hugged the wall. The rumbling worked through my body. The walls shook. I thought the house might cave. I ran outside. The sky was a ceiling of thick gray muscle. Flashes lit up the field with hot white stabs that cracked the air. The ground rumbled but didn't shift. The rumbles came right after the flashes. They had rhythm. They had power, bigger than any person. The rumbles started to hold me instead of frighten me. I raised my hand, reached for the sky. More flashes dropped in the fields. I felt the rumbling from my backbone outward. My blood thrilled. I wanted to touch that power the way I touched grass. Multiple flashes surged. Some fell from the sky, some looked like they shot up from the fields. I yelled. More white stabs tore down to the fields. The rumbles held me. My hand fluttered. I screamed with joy, full and free. The light, the rumbles, my voice were all the same. The pebbles under my feet shook. I stretched my eyes wide open to let in the light, stared at the places where it cracked the air. I yearned to live in such light. Within those cracks, it seemed there was space for me. The white light soaked into my eyeballs. My torn ear and my bloody leg and my broken arm glowed. My pain was not just pain, it was more. The rumbles came down on me and my muscles quivered and my mind emptied. The air tasted new, like fresh rocks. I screamed again, emptied my lungs at the sky. Drops of water fell, light, then heavy. I turned, thought someone had spit on me, like in the cage at my father's house. The flashes and rumbles continued. Water fell hard onto me. The sky sweated. I opened my mouth, cupped my hand. I ran into the house and grabbed a dirty barrel and filled it, and drank. The blood on my leg and neck washed away. My hair became thick. My clothes clung to my body like a second skin. I got another barrel and set it on the ground and laughed as it filled up. The flashes and rumbles faded. The water stopped. The air turned sweet. I took both barrels inside and sat by the window sipping from them. The gray muscle in the sky slackened and emptied out of the sky, like it was tired. An enormous feeling blared through my body. I think it was love. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Adam. I won't waste any time here with wrapping up. I'll just say thank you to all who were involved tonight, and we will save we're good until 9. So we're got about 8 minutes here for Q&A. So if people have questions, like Gary said, feel free to put them through in the chat, or you can raise your hand down at the bottom of the screen and we'll get to you.
And I'm going to start. So because we're short for time, you can just say yes or no. That's it. So, but actually, the first question I'd like to ask generally is for everybody. Is how is your particular way of engaging with the world, your disability, your difference, your community? How does that affect the form of your work?
I would say yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Next question. Sorry, that was a trick. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, wow. I think it's funny because I think my brain makes poetry just very easily.
Mm-hmm.
It just sort of comes out that way. So I think it has everything to do with it.
I have something called clanging in psychiatry, which makes meter and rhyme extremely natural for me. If you read more of my works, you'll see there's a metronomic pattern and flow that it's not set to any known meter, but it's obviously there's a clock running behind the scenes.
Adam, do you want to comment?
Sure. If there's one thing I know, it's I wouldn't be a writer if I wasn't deaf.
Mm-hmm.
And and one of the things that being deaf has done is that it's given me a unique relationship with text. And so when I was growing up, I was relying on captioning and having to read my way through the world, so to speak. And it's so text means more to me than just being kind of words on a page. It's also my primary way, or one of my primary ways of engaging with the world, because it gives me a visual anchor on which to a visual anchor to grip onto.
Although I was going to ask a question, actually, I was going to ask a question about the passage you read was so rhythmic. I mean, I think you're like being all that heavy metal drumming must be doing something for, it's just your work has this rhythmic propulsion to it always. So I don't know.
You need to hi-hat those sounds. You need to like use their sibilants to hi-hat enough here.
I think he's tom-toms all the way, or kick drum. Thank you all. Here's another, I have a question actually for Kaz from Feishuan. So Kaz, what are your thoughts on the intersection between divinity, person of color, heritage, and queerness? Also bonus for thoughts on translation and language, speaking as another bilingual person, though I speak Japanese, not my parents' native Viet. It's an easy question for you, you know?
I really can't.
You can get back to me on that.
Yes, we can talk about it in length, but the thing is, I believe, so okay, I'm going to get into two things in very, very particular things, which is that I'm going to get into horror, and I love horror, and what I love the most in horror is cosmic horror, and I love Sufism, and what I love most in Sufism, anyway, I think Sufism and horror, cosmic horror, are the same 90% of the way, and they go all the way from a person absolutely floundering in their insignificant existence, and they get to a point where it's proven to them that they're completely inconsequential to the larger theme of things. And in Sufism, that is considered the dissolution of the individual is perceived as the most holy of human experiences, while in cosmic horror, that is perceived as the greatest horror of human existence. Anyway, there's a lot of things about this. There's a lot written in Sufism specifically. Sufism really relates to, and it's not just Sufism. Like you see, like you know, like another thing, a lot of linguistic thing, and everything I will say is that, for example, the matrika. I mean, they are gods, but also the matrika is the kissing point of the subjective existence and the objective existence of the Brahma, and matrika gives English the two words matrix and mother, which is, you know, and also like it comes from the French matrice, like a pregnant mother. Anyway, what was I going?
That's great. I love that you can,
let's go forth.
I love that you can speak in terms of cosmic horror. You can speak to Lovecraft and say, like, in your face, this person of color, queer, right? Like all the things that would give him another kind of horror. So fantastic. I have a question from Shane, and maybe Paul could start answering this, perhaps, because we haven't heard from you, if you're good with that, or Simon in his stead, which is, so this Shane writes, thanks to all the readers and performers. This has been such a wonderful night. I completely agree with him. I wonder if you find that CanLit has been welcoming to your disability or community. If not, or even if so, how might it become more so? Feishuan too, what is the situation like in America for accommodation and welcoming for multiply marginalized writers?
It's not good. It's not good. It's very bad. No, sorry.
I asked for yes and no, and that was fantastic. No, like yeah.
No.
Yeah. Well, how can it be better then? In like what? I mean, beyond just
speaking purely academically, academic accommodations are basically useless, and they're useless. They're not respected. The basic, all the workplace accommodations and academic accommodations have an incredibly ridiculous amount of hoops and gatekeepers just to get accommodations that your superiors will fight you on respecting even the basest amount.
So what's the way forward? Just to get it together?
What's the way forward? Maybe respect disabled people and don't make accommodations. Don't make the application of applying for accommodations so rigorous and demanding that people can't, like disabled people can't commit to, can't even apply for accommodations because the process is so ableist. So not only simplify the process of applying for accommodations, believe disabled people, and also respect the accommodations once you have them. But I feel personally like, why do I have to prove myself to you? Why do I have to prove my disability? And I guess like, yeah, some people are gonna lie about it, but like, I feel like there's just way too much documentation. And I feel like the imposters are far, far fewer, and just trying to weed them out is so much more damaging than actually helping disabled people.
Thank you. It sounds so complicated and tricky to like respect and acknowledge people and not make them prove who they are. Like what? Right? Yeah.
Imagine that.
Like craziness. Paul or Simon, would you like to weigh in on that, perhaps? Or
wow, am I on audio? I don't know. I think I might be.
Yes, you are indeed.
So I so agree with the previous comments, and I thought the musical interlude was so much more than a musical interlude. And Sedona McKaylee, who edited our films, had such a problem with accommodation at school. It was like ridiculous. And then if I can jump back to a previous part, for me, William Butler Yeats would work out the rhythm to his poems by walking. And I walk, and I often fall down. Bam! When I fall down, some people often see me and say, "Oh, are you okay?" And I say to them, What? Did you fall down? Not me. I put it on them. Did you fall down? To work out the rhythm of my poetry, I ask Simon all the time to read my poetry to me, and I listen so carefully to him, and I adjust to him and other people. And if he stumbles, I know. If he stumbles as I stumble, I say, I have to work on that. And I so appreciate Simon for reading my poetry to me and helping me to make them work and then to make films around that. I'm so pleased and happy about that. And I want to say to everyone who read tonight how like just really taken I was with all of the work. It was so fabulous, and I'm so pleased about it. And Shane, I think that the Abel Hamilton Poetry Festival will have a part of the Hamilton Arts and Letters 13th anniversary event at the Art Gallery of Hamilton, and I welcome the readers who will be part of that. And Gary, thank you, and everyone, thank you for letting us be part of this. And that's all I have to say. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks to Gatry. Thank you to Gatry.
Oh yeah, and absolutely. Thank you so much. And so making it beautiful. Absolutely. I'm going to pass it on to Ben, who's going to wrap us up because I know that we have a time limit. So I'm going to leave it to Ben to. Are you going to sing us out? Interpretive
Yes, I will make it beautiful.
Yeah.
No, I'll send you all off. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Our next LitLive is Sunday, December 5th at 7:30. We hope to see you again. Thank you.